What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Football Anonymous Show. Yes, you. Welcome in. I'm Joe Osno here with my good buddies Rob Shaw and Matthew Schroeder. We're going to be talking about the Week 2 games, some of the fantasy plays we like for this week. And but before we do that, we should talk about this Thursday night game. Give a little bit of recap and what we saw that really stood out in this game.
If you can call it a game.
Guys, what a thrilling game that was.
Oh
I was just like, no. That was one of the most boring games outside of that long Deshaun Watson run. But, yeah, guys, that was a hard watch.
Thankfully I missed this one. I had to work a shift, and I got the radio broadcast. Those Bengals announcers were not happy.
I don't think anyone was happy with that game. It was like run for 2 yards, run for 3 yards, incomplete pass. Both quarterbacks did not look good. Both O-lines did not look good. I guess if you like defensive battles, I guess you were kind of happy. But it was more offensive ineptitude than like really good defense, even though they both have decent defenses. But it was not a pretty game. And for me, it just kind of goes back to the fact that Thursday Night Football lately has not been that good of a product.
Not very good matchups on Thursday Night Football. It's usually a game, more of an obligation game to get some of these not as good teams on primetime television. So,
I think this is a game that would have been bad if it was played at 1 o'clock on Sunday too, though. So,
touche.
In terms of what happened in the game fantasy football-wise, I think DeAndre Hopkins put up around a 7 for 70 line in PPR. He did okay. Regular leagues, not that great. AJ Green, he had, 60 yards, something like that?
Correct.
So, he put up a ton. I mean, there's no one that you could have started that you looked after this game and it was like, oh, yeah, great. I'm glad I started them. Everyone that you started, if they played on one of these two teams, you were not happy with.
I did like Houston's defense, though. 10 points. I will take double-digit points in fantasy football. So that was a solid play.
Any skill players, I'll say. But, I mean, it was just an ugly game. But, I mean, I think these offenses will turn it around at least a little bit eventually. I think they can't get worse than they are, especially for A.J. Green. I know probably a lot of people are going to be panicking on him. I would say don't worry about it yet. I think he's still a premier talent in the NFL. He's going to be fine for your fantasy league. So don't sell him while he's low. Keep him. You'll get rewarded sooner rather than later.
Yeah, he definitely had a right to be frustrated after this game. Gave a pretty pointed interview, I believe, with some sideline reporters. But, I agree. I think he'll be fine. And Zampese earned his pink slip these first two.
Yeah, he did.
So things could get better. All right, moving into Week 2.
We can only hope. Yeah, so we're going to jump into Week 2. The first game that we got up is the Browns versus Ravens. So, Rob, walk me through some of the players that you're looking forward to seeing in this game, if any, and let me know who you think is going to win.
Well, the players that I think that are going to be really good in this game, yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm really not looking forward to many of these players, especially on the Cleveland side of the ball. Baltimore has a great defense. I would start them in a heartbeat. I'll be a little curious to see if Mike Wallace can do a little something and some of those running backs. Buck Allen was a good waiver wire pickup this week with Danny Woodhead being out. Terrence West had a solid game last week. I'll be curious to see how he does, but not really anyone in this game that I'm just like, oh my gosh, you have to start them. Staying away from a lot of players, and maybe just some of the running backs for Baltimore. What about you guys?
I'm excited to see Justin Tucker. I think he's going to be great in this one.
Excited to see a kicker. I've never heard that before.
He's their best offensive player, and I don't say that lightly.
Who do you guys have to actually win the game?
Oh, I got Baltimore on this one. I think Cleveland still pretty young, and I think Baltimore's defense is cemented. The offense is good enough, controlling the ball, running the ball. I'm going with Baltimore in this one.
Yeah, same for me. I think it's going to be a pretty pretty much of a clunker offensively, but Baltimore defense is just so good. I got to take them.
Yeah, I think we're going to sweep that one. The one player, or I guess the two players I'm looking forward to seeing, Isaiah Crowell. He put up a kind of a disappointing week last week. He did get 17 carries, so I want to see if that workload continues. This is a tough matchup, so I'm not expecting great things from him. But I would still like to see the workload, just to keep a little bit of optimism on him. On the other side of the ball, it's Joe Flacco, who I'm interested in seeing. He only threw something like 12, 15 passes last game, something like that, really low. He's coming back from injury. I want to see if they'll kind of unleash him a little bit. Next game we got up is the Bears at Buccaneers. Joe, we'll start with you. Who do you like in this game?
I like the Bucs in this one. I think they've had so much time to prepare for the Bears, and honestly, the Bears just aren't that good. I'm looking forward to see how they come out to start the season. Honestly, I thought Houston was one of my favorite stories of a week ago, of a hurricane-ravaged city that I thought was going to rally around their football team, and the football team didn't really come out and play that great of a game. But I'm interested to see how I thought that Bears defense was actually pretty good, or at least the run defense in week one.
They weren't bad.
Bad. I'm interested to see how they play in this one on the road.
Yeah, I agree with that, Joe, and I'm really interested to see how Jameis Winston comes out this season. I think this being his third year, this is that big year for quarterbacks. Is he going to be the real deal? I think this matchup against Chicago is going to be a good start for him. I'm a little interested to see how they get the running game going with Jacquizz Rodgers. Not really sure how that's going to shape out yet. But they got lots of offensive weapons, Mike Evans, Deshaun Jackson. I think Jameis Winston has no reason that he can't succeed right now. And Tampa's defense has gotten a little better over the past few years. So I think they'll keep Chicago's offense at bay. I'm also very intrigued to see how Cohen for the Bears is going to play this week, how they're going to utilize him. He had a nice opening week against the Falcons. Schroeder, we were talking earlier, you were saying he could lead the team in receptions this season. I think that's definitely a possibility. So I'll be looking at him in fantasy to be potential flex. So it'll be interesting to see that dynamic, especially with Jordan Howard maybe being banged up. We'll have to wait and see. Schroeder?
I'm going to take the Buccaneers at home. And, the player I was going to pick is Tariq Cohen, too, after a great week one. I want to see if he's going to get more involved in the passing game. He's a small back. I don't think he's going to ever be, a frontline starter. But in terms of kind of a Darren Sproles out of the backfield who gets also a few carries, I feel like he can fill that role pretty well. And, he could definitely have some fantasy value, especially in PPR leagues. Next game we got is the Vikings at Steelers. Rob, what do you think about this one?
This one I've been going back and forth on all week. Can't seem to make up my mind on this one. But I'm going with the Vikings on this. This is going to be, I think, one of the premier games this weekend, the one that I'm going to be excited to look into. What can I say? I was blown away last week by Minnesota's performance, especially on the offensive side of the ball. We knew going in that their defense would be pretty good, but offensively they were just clicking on all cylinders, running the ball, passing the ball. Now, it was against New Orleans, so we have to keep that in mind. I think it'll be a little more of a struggle this week. I don't think they're going to be lighting it up, but I also am not sold that Pittsburgh's going to be lighting it up either. Other than Antonio Brown, there really wasn't a whole lot of spark from Bell or from any of the other receivers. So I like Minnesota to win this game in a nail biter. I think the score will be something around 21-20. I'm very curious to see how Big Ben does, because this is a tough Vikings defense he's going up against, but historically he performs very well at home. So I'm kind of on the fence about starting him in fantasy football. I think if you have better options, I would go that route. But if you are a little desperate, you might want to go with him at home despite the tough matchup. It's going to be interesting to see. Joe?
Yeah, I got to go with the Steelers in this one at home. Two teams I really like. Obviously, Minnesota was the more impressive team in week 1, but I don't know what I think of that New Orleans defense. I think against a much more competent defense this week, maybe Sam Bradford struggles a little bit on this one. But I think he'll be fine, though, for the most part. I just think the Steelers play so well at home. Big Ben plays so well at home. I'm interested to see how Le'Veon Bell bounces back in this one. He was obviously a little bit rusty in the opener. Didn't get that many touches, honestly, which is kind of rare for him on the road. Yeah, I'm interested to see also Dalvin Cook in this one, how he performs against a competent defense. Really, all those Minnesota weapons, how they play in this one, if they can sustain that production from week 1. Who do you like in this one, Schroeder?
I'm going to have to go with Steelers at home. They're just a much better offense at home than on the road. I don't really worry about Le'Veon Bell. I think he's going to bounce back at least a little bit this week against a good defense. But the matchup I'm interested in seeing is Sam Bradford. He's kind of had a knee injury this past week after the game. So let's see if he can actually be healthy and still show that, like last game, that he was throwing bullets last game all over New Orleans. Again, it was against New Orleans. So, we'll see if he can actually do that against a competent defense. But I'm also looking at Stephon Diggs to see if he can, really take the third-year leap for a wide receiver and become one of the elite guys. Next game we got up is the Patriots against, again, that pathetic New Orleans defense and the Saints. So, Joe, who do you got in this one?
Give me the Pats on the road. I don't see how they don't bounce back in this one. I think this is going to be a great game to watch if you're a fantasy football enthusiast, as we are. So I'm interested to see, obviously, Brandon Cooks. There's the narrative there. Also, I own a lot of shares of him in fantasy football. I'm interested to see how he performs in this one. Also, I'm interested to see how the Patriots will go about replacing Amendola. He's such a necessary piece in that offense, that slot receiver who works in the middle of the field there.
Yeah.
Who do you like in this one, Rob?
Yeah, I like the Patriots as well. As far as fantasy football goes, I like everyone in this game. Like, if you could like everyone, realizing that not everyone's going to have a great game. But yeah, New Orleans defense did not look good. And this is the Patriots offense. The Patriots, when they lose like that, they get mad afterwards. And they usually perform extremely well, especially after losing to the Chiefs. I remember a few years ago, they destroyed the Bengals in primetime television. So I'm definitely Cooks. I really like this week. I like a lot of the New England running backs. It'll be interested to see how they're utilized. I had heard reports potentially of Burkhead moving to the slot just because he kind of has that skill set. Also from the New Orleans side of the ball, I'm interested in seeing how the running back situation plays out. If they're going to use Mark Ingram or Adrian Peterson or even roll with Alvin Kamara a little bit. He looked really good out of the backfield in week 1. So it's interesting to see how that's going to shape up, who they're going to go with. My money's on Kamara. I really like the way he's been performing. I think they're going to be playing from behind. I think New England's going to get ahead, and they're going to have to be put in those third and throwing situations early. So what about you, Schroeder?
We're going Patriots sweep here. Look for a big bounce back from an angry Patriots team, and I expect Gronk to actually have a very solid game after his disappointing Week 1 performance. Eagles-Chiefs, next game up. Joe, who do you like?
Going with the Chiefs at home. It's obviously their defense took a hit with the loss of Eric Berry, but I think they're a tougher squad than I thought they would be this year. I'm interested to see how Kareem Hunt comes out after his pretty amazing Week 1 performance after I kind of talked crap about him right beforehand.
He got angry at you, Joe.
I know he somehow heard what I said, and well, I'll prove that guy wrong. And I'm interested to see if Nelson Aguilar is actually a thing. I'm very have my questions about that.
We're not, for the record, to the audience, we're not big Nelson Aguilar fans.
I don't think anyone is. So I think they understand that no one likes Nelson Aguilar.
Yeah. I like the Chiefs in this game too. I think the Eagles are really moving in the right direction. I called that they would win week 1, and I almost went with them this week, but I think we tend to forget how good Kansas City is. I'm always picking them to regress a little bit as Alex Smith gets older, and they never do. I think it's really a testament to Andy Reid as a coach, how he gets his players prepared for the game. So that being said, at home, I like the Chiefs at home. They play very well at home. I think their defense is going to hold up very good. I think Carson Wentz had a really good week 1. I like where he's moving, but I think this is going to be a tougher matchup for him this week. There's going to be some mistakes in there. And I'm curious also to see how Kareem Hunt performs this week. I'm also curious to see if Zach Ertz can keep up his production. Had a nice week last week, had about 7 catches. Seems to be a bigger focal point of that offense. He's kind of been hyped over the years, but I really think this might be his year to make that jump into the top 5. And I'm curious against a tough defense like this, how he'll perform. I think he'll perform well. I'm predicting big things from Zach Ertz this week. Schroeder?
I'm picking the Chiefs this week. I could easily see the Eagles coming away with an upset here. I think the Chiefs' defense is going to be a little bit overrated, especially now that they lost Eric Berry. You have to remember, last year they gave up a lot of yards to teams, a lot. It's just they kept on getting turnovers. That was their bread and butter, and that's why they won so many games. If they can continue that trend this year, then they're going to still win a lot of games. But I wouldn't be surprised to see the Eagles actually go on the road and actually win this one. Next game up, we have the Titans at Jaguars. Rob, who do you like?
Well, I like the Tennessee Titans to bounce back this week. I'm not a big believer in the Jaguars yet. Had a good week, played good defense, ran the ball very well, but in this day and age, you need a great quarterback to win a lot of games, and it's very hard if you don't have that stability. And I don't think Blake Bortles provides that stability. Ironically, I will be curious to see if he can put up some good numbers. Tennessee's defense gave up some points last week, to some fantasy points to Derek Carr and Amari Cooper. So I'll be interested to see if he can maybe be one of those sleeper guys this week. On the Titans side of the ball, I'm curious to see if they will actually be that elite offense that I'm expecting them to be, how Mariota will bounce back. And I'm very big on Delaney Walker this week. I think he'll have a nice matchup. I think he'll have some good targets. I think he's a safe play at tight end this week. What about you, Joe?
Yeah, I like the Titans in this one. I think it's going to be a pretty close game between these two division rivals. That Jacksonville defense is tough up front, and they have a pretty strong secondary too. There, I love Jalen Ramsey.
I think he's actually going to be missing this game, though.
I had not heard that. It doesn't really affect my outlook on this game too much. I'm interested to see if the Titans can get their running game going this week. It kind of sputtered out last week. They tried to really attack that Oakland defense through the air. I think they need to. This is a game where they get back to a bit more of the exotic smash mouth that we saw a year ago. I'm also interested to see if Blake Bortles can get anything going in the passing game without Allen Robinson. And I know they're going to miss him a ton this year, but that's the best way to attack this Tennessee defense. What about you, Schroeder?
Yeah, the Titans need to get back to running the football and running it down someone's throat. Last week, they tried to get cute and they tried to say, hey, we're a passing attack team. And they do have a lot of weapons in there. But I don't think it's quite the time. I think they need to slowly integrate into that instead of, jump into it as much as they did against Oakland. I like the Titans this week, really getting back to their roots, running the football. I just don't think that the Jacksonville Jaguars, especially if they get behind with Blake Bortles, are going to have the weapons to come back and actually get back into the game. Cardinals at Colts, we could go over this one really quick because it's such a bad game. I'm just going to go ahead and say I'm taking the Cardinals, and there's not that much fantasy analysis to it without Andrew Luck on the Colts side.
I'm taking the Cardinals too, and the only thing I'll be interested to see is how the Cardinals' backfield shapes up, whether Kerwin Williams gets a lot of carries, how much they're going to have Ellington in there. I do like Larry Fitzgerald in this game to put up some decent numbers, especially in PPR. I think he could be a good play. Other than that, not really much to say. They don't have Andrew Luck. They look awful without him. I think the Cardinals will manage this one and come away with the W.
Yeah, I think we're going to sweep Cardinals here. I don't see how anyone could pick the Colts to win this game after the game they played a week ago. I'm interested to see if they put a little bit more on Carson Palmer's shoulders with the absence of David Johnson. He was pretty bad last week, but if there was ever an opportunity to bounce back, this is it.
Next game up, we got the Fantasy Football Anonymous War of the Hosts. Bills-Panthers, guys.
Wow.
Bills fan, we'll start with you.
All right. Well, I'm picking the Carolina Panthers to win this game. You'll see that I often pick against my favorite team. I've even made bets against my favorite team and won money because somebody was stupid enough to bet that the Bills would make the playoffs. And I was like, I am taking them up on this offer. Still haven't gotten that money, by the way. Anyways, no one here owes me money. So I like the Panthers to win this. I'll be one guy on Buffalo's side that I do think will have a good week is LaShawn McCoy. He is the centerpiece of this offense. He will get at least 20 touches. He's one of those guys is going to get the ball a lot. And I think he's going to, if not have a big game, he'll at least have a solid game, much like he did last week. He had over 100 yards, didn't get any touchdowns. But I think they're going to try to get the ball in his hands. He's one of those players that's so talented that he's going to make the best of a bad day, even if the Bills are getting beat. He rarely has awful games in fantasy, so I feel pretty good about starting him this week. On the Panthers side of the ball, I think this could be a game where Cam Newton finally gets back to that rare form. The Buffalo Bills have a young secondary and a very new secondary, a lot of new guys coming in. They signed Micah Hyde this offseason and Jordan Poyer. They have a rookie corner as well. So I could see Cam Newton really kind of getting back. He looked a little rusty week one, but I could see him getting back to the old Cam Newton. This is a good test for him against this young secondary that he could get back to the MVP Cam Newton style season. So I'm going with the Panthers on this.
I'd settle for a Cam Newton that could hit wide open receivers, unlike we saw a week ago. I do like the Panthers in this contest. Although they've had their struggles against the Buffalo Bills in the past, regardless of how the season-ending records turned out. But yeah, I'm interested to see how Cam plays in this one. He was so rusty in that opener, but he does have a good shot against the young and banged up Bills secondary. I'm also interested to see McCoy in this one. Obviously, I think he's going to have a great week. It's hard for a player like him not to when he has as many touches as he's going to get. What about you, Schroeder?
Sweep it. Panthers going to win this game. I think it's going to be a heavy running game again for the Panthers. I think they're going to feed Chase to a lot. They're still going to try and limit Cam Newton's workload a little bit. I think he's a decent play. He's not an amazing play, though. But, yeah, I pick Panthers to win. Next game we got up, I already know everyone is going to be picking the Raiders out of us unless one person really likes the Jets. And the fantasy analysis should be start all your Raiders. But, Rob, what do you think?
Start all your Raiders.
Okay.
Yeah, seriously, though. the Raiders are going to win. I mean, that's all there is to it, and they're going to put up some points. I think the thing I want to look at is which Jets to start against. Not the greatest defense in the world. I'll be curious to see how Robbie Anderson does this week. Could be a sleeper pick, especially in PPRs. And then really not feeling any of the running backs, considering not really sure who's going to get the entire workload. So I would stay away from most Jets players this week and just go all Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, after what we saw last week against Tennessee, hey, maybe that Raiders run defense is better than we thought. And plus, I mean, I don't really know that you could justify starting either Bilal Powell or Matt Forte in this game. But yeah, start all your Raiders. That's about it.
Next game we got clean sweep for the Raiders. That one should be pretty obvious. Next game we got up is actually one of the sneaky good games that I think could be happening this week. And this is going to be the Dolphins at the Chargers. Joe, who do you like in this game?
I like the Chargers to win this one, but I think I agree with you. I like this game. I'm interested to see how the Chargers play this one. If that run exclusive attack was specific to the Denver game plan, or if they're going to air it out a little bit more in this one. And it'll be interesting to see how Jay Cutler suits up in his Dolphin uniform for the first time. Interested to see Devontae Parker, how the touches shake out there for the receivers. What about you, Rob? Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, I'm going with the Chargers as well. I think this is one of the best games of the week. I'm curious to see how Keenan Allen's going to do. I think he could have a big week. I thought he looked pretty solid against a tough Denver defense. This could be the week that he's going to break out and maybe get in the end zone. From the Dolphins, yeah, it's like you said, Jay Cutler. How's he going to look? I think this is going to be a learning process. I think he could provide stability at the quarterback position for them, but I don't think it's this week. I think there's going to be a learning curve there. They had a good season last year, but I do feel this is a backsliding year for the Dolphins. So I'm going with Phillip Rivers. I like him. He's as I told Joe earlier today, I said he's a good receiver, and then I had to correct myself. After realizing what I just said, he's the better quarterback in this one. So yeah, I like the Chargers. I like Keenan Allen, Phillip Rivers this week.
Yeah, well, Phillip Rivers is not that good of a receiver. I will say that. But I do expect the Chargers to win. If this was at the Dolphins' home, I'd pick the Dolphins. But since it's at Chargers, I'm going to have to go with them. I think this could be relatively high scoring, strangely enough. And what I want to really look for is Devontae Parker. He has gotten so much press over the past couple years of, this is his year, this is his breakout year. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think this might actually be his breakout year. I want to see if he has the talent. He has the skill set. Let's see if Jay Cutler can actually get him the ball enough to where he can actually be, a very fantasy relevant receiver. Next game we got up is the Seahawks 49ers. I'm pretty sure everyone is going to be picking the Seahawks in this one as well. I'll go ahead and just say my pick, Seahawks. Start your Seahawks here too. Joe?
Yeah. Same. I love the Seahawks in this one. I don't think there's any way that the 49ers can move the ball against that defense at home, especially coming off a tough loss a week ago. I'm interested to see if any of the running backs in Seattle can get something going this week, kind of establish themselves as the lead dog in that backfield, or if it's just going to be a quagmire all season.
If they're going to, this is the week to do it.
I would definitely agree.
I would agree with that, and I like Seattle in this game. I guess one guy I think is going to have a good week, be intriguing, is Doug Baldwin. Kind of had a quiet week one, but I think this could be his week to bounce back. Not much to say about this matchup. Start your Seahawks and stay away from your Niners. Seahawks defense for the win.
All right. Next matchup we got is Redskins at Rams, or the Sean McVay Bowl, if you will. Sean McVay faces his old team for the first time. Rob, who do you like in this one?
Oh, man. I'm going with the Rams on this one. I did not like what I saw from the Washington Redskins offense last week. And I think the Rams, while they beat the Colts, I like the chemistry they had last week. I think that the Redskins could still have a good season, but I think it's going to be a learning curve with all the new weapons that have come in. It takes time to develop this chemistry. So I'm going with the Rams on this one. I don't necessarily love all their players necessarily. On the Washington side of the ball, I'm staying away from Kirk Cousins still. I would rather start him maybe a few more games into the season whenever he kind of has had more practice with the new receivers. One guy I do like, I think Jordan Reed's going to bounce back. I think he was a little rusty coming off of his injuries. I think we might see some good things from him this week. I'm very big on Jordan Reed this week. What about you?
Yeah, I like the Rams in this one. We're going with two Rams picks here. I think that defense gets a boost getting Aaron Donald back this week, and that Washington offense looked so dysfunctional in week 1. It's tough to say, but I'm picking the Rams. and I do agree with Rob. I think Jordan Reed bounces back this week. He has a pretty solid week.
I think you guys are crazy. I'm picking the Skins, and I feel pretty good about it. The Rams got to face a hapless Colts team. And if you know anything about the Rams, they love looking pretty good in week 1 and then being absolutely terrible in week 2. I expect the Redskins to actually at least get a little bit rid of some of their dysfunction. They did face a good defense last week in Philly. The Rams are a decent defense as well, but I think the Redskins just have too many offensive weapons. I think they're going to pull this one out. Next game we got is the Cowboys at Broncos, and we'll go ahead and start with you, Joe.
I'm taking the Cowboys in this one, although I don't feel very good about it. I think this is a game where they run the ball, control the clock, use that great offensive line, and they win this game on the back of Zeke Elliott and Dan Bailey. I don't really believe that we saw anything great from their defense in week 1. I think it was had a lot more to do with the porous Giants offensive line. I think they win this one. Dallas.
Yeah, I think it was. I'm going with the Cowboys as well. But I like what I saw out of Dallas's defense last week, even though the Giants really never found the rhythm. I'm not saying that I love Dallas's defense, but I think it was an improvement, kind of middle of the pack, perhaps. I think it's the same situation. I think they're going to be running the ball a lot with Zeke. I don't necessarily love Zeke this week. I think it's going to be, maybe an 80-yard performance, might not get into the end zone. I think this is going to be an uglier, low-scoring game. I'll be curious to see how Dak goes up against a much tougher defense, even though the Giants have a good defense as well, just to continue to see how he keeps developing. I do believe Dak Prescott is for real. I think he's going to be a really good quarterback in this league for a while. That's about. I'm going with Dallas on this one.
Yeah, I have to go with Dallas too. I think they're just going to run too much for the Broncos to stop. The Broncos have never been a great team at stopping the run, and I don't think their offense is as good as it looked last week. Next game, we got the Packers at Falcons. Rob, who do you like in this game?
Well, this is just going to be a great game. This is the one I'm really excited for. I'm going with the Packers. I like the way they're playing. I think what was really impressive last week was how well their defense surprisingly played. I wasn't really a big fan of their defense going into the season, but they performed better than expected. I know the Seahawks have kind of been struggling to find a rhythm. They can sometimes put up really bad offensive games, but sometimes they can be really effective and score a ton. So they held them very well last week. And I think that they'll do fairly decent against Matt Ryan. I still think this is going to be a bit of a backsliding year for the Falcons. I was not impressed by how they played defense against the Bears. I didn't expect the Bears to score many points, and they scored plenty. So fantasy football-wise, I'm starting a lot of guys in this. I think it's going to be a shootout. I love Aaron Rodgers this week, obviously, and I like Matt Ryan too. I'll be interested to see how Davante Adams, after a very quiet week one, if he bounces back, might look to him to score a touchdown this week against a weaker Atlanta defense. But on the other side of the ball, well, I'll be interested to see if Julio Jones can have a big game. I think this is shaping up to be a good week for him. He's kind of a hot and cold player. He'll have a great week, then kind of have a mediocre week. So what about you guys?
Yeah, I'm going with the Packers in this one, but I think it's going to be a great game for fantasy football. I'm starting everyone in this game. I think that's going to be a lot of points scored. I will be interested to see how Davante Adams plays in this one, if he's actually taken a back seat to Randall Cobb in this offense, or if that was a game plan specific thing against Seattle. Honestly, I think they're both going to be involved plenty, and should be a really fun one to watch. How about you, Schroeder?
I'm picking the Packers. This is a game you start every single fantasy player that you can. Should be a high-scoring game. Unfortunately, I'm going up against every single fantasy player in this game as well, and so I'm projected to get pretty pissed at this game, I'm sure, as the game goes along. But I think Packers will win it. But it should be a lot of fun to watch. Last game on Monday night, we got the Lions at the Giants, and Joe, we'll start with you.
A matchup of two of Matt Schroeder's favorite quarterbacks in this one. That's a joke. I'm going with the Lions here. Yeah. And that's mainly because I don't know if Odell Beckham's going to play in this game. And without him, I don't know if the Giants offense can get anything going. Even if he does play, he might be limited. There's always a chance that he saves the Giants bacon with a huge day. But I think the Lions win this one in a squeaker, 12-10. A lot of Matt Prater.
Yeah, a lot of Matt Prater, and I'm picking the Lions on this one too. I feel fairly confident about it. Even if Odell Beckham plays with the injury, he might just be out there as a decoy. Might not get a lot of action. The fact of the matter is, the Giants just could not get anything going offensively. Obviously, in the passing game, they struggled, but they could not run the ball. And not to say that Detroit is necessarily running the ball very well, but I think they have better control of the game. By last week, they definitely showed that. And Matt Stafford's playing very well right now. I think he's really found his rhythm after that awful start, pick six last week. And so I'm going with the team that the quarterback is really rolling right now. I'm going with Matt Stafford and the Detroit Lions.
As sneaky of a game as the Dolphins-Chargers was good, this is as sneaky of a game as it is bad. I project this to be just an ugly game. I think Beckham will come back for this game. That will help the Giants' offense look at least a little bit better. But I think the Giants are going to win in kind of an ugly affair. With probably everyone getting their dash at hope in fantasy football.
Wait. Did we just disagree on a game?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We've been agreeing most of the time this
week. I picked the Skins. You guys like the Rams. I picked the Skins.
Right.
So
yeah.
Well, you picked against the Rams the last week, and that didn't work out.
Yeah, it did not. All right, so we got only a few more minutes left. We're going to be quickly going through some of the guys that we project to do very good this week. Some of the guys that we think you should bench. And some of the guys that, if you really need to, some could be sneaky plays. So, Rob, we'll go ahead and start with you. Go ahead, just list off all the guys who you think are going to be good, bad, and sneaky plays.
Well, at quarterback, the good Tom Brady, Drew Brees. I mean, that's pretty much self-explanatory. We talked about how great that game is going to be offensively. One guy I'm really worried about is Big Ben Roethlisberger. He plays very well at home, but that was a really stingy defense with not a lot of receiving help outside of Antonio Brown. So I'd be a little worried on playing him. Quarterback that could be really good this week, Blake Bortles. Yes, I just said those words. I could see them going down. I think that Tennessee will score some points, and I could see them throwing a lot late, perhaps getting some garbage time touchdowns. He has Marquise Lee. He has Allen Hurns. Not the greatest receiving core, but just looking at some of the matchups, if you're doing DraftKings or you're a little desperate, Bortles might be floating out there. So that's my quarterbacks. What about you guys?
Yeah, I like Russell Wilson at home this week to bounce back. He's one of my top plays at quarterback. I just don't really see how he doesn't get it going against the 49ers at home. I think this could be one of his better games of the year. A guy I'm really kind of off of is Dak Prescott. It's such a tough matchup in Denver against that pass defense. I've already said I think they go run heavy here. He should have a okay week, but obviously the upside there is capped. And a guy I think that could bounce back this week is Carson Palmer. I've already talked about we've all talked about how bad that Colts defense is. I think he finds ways to exploit him in this game. What about you, Schroeder? What are the quarterbacks you're looking at?
Quarterback that I think could have a really good week is Phillip Rivers. He faced the hardest defense he's probably going to face all year in terms of secondaries in Denver. So I expect him to have a pretty good game against a not that great secondary in Miami. Quarterback I'm going to be trying to avoid is, sadly, I love him, but Cam, I just don't think they're going to let him throw that much, and I think they're going to try and run the ball as much as possible, just kind of keep the game out of his arm as he recovers from that shoulder surgery. And the sneaky play that I have is Joe Flacco. He's facing Cleveland, and that's really all the analysis you need.
Good analysis there, Schroeder. Good analysis. I'm going to take a look at some of the running backs here. One of the running backs that I really like, it's kind of a safe play, is LaShawn McCoy. I hit on it a little bit earlier. I just feel like the Buffalo Bills, they're a running team, run-first team. They're going to give them the ball a ton. And they're probably going to look to get the ball to him on some screens as well. Could be a little concerned about Tolbert taking touchdowns away, but I like McCoy. One of the guys I'm staying away from is Le'Veon Bell. That's right. I just said it. Just with the way he wasn't utilized last week, I feel like they're trying to ease him into this. And I don't think this is the defense that he's going to bounce back against. You looked at Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram, Adrian Peterson. They were able to get nothing on this Vikings defense. I think he's going to struggle. I think he'll do better. But I would you probably will end up playing him this week if you have him. But if you are in DraftKings or something, I would stay away from him this week. And one of the guys that I'm really looking forward to seeing is Andre Ellington, especially in PPR formats. I think we could see a lot of playing time from him, be kind of a timeshare. And this is against an abysmal Colts defense. So I think he could be one of those sneaky guys who could really get you some sleeper points here.
Yeah, one of my top running back plays this week is Marshawn Lynch. It's such a good matchup. They're favored by 14 at home. These are going to be the games where he's freshest early in the season. I think this will be his best opportunity, I think, honestly, to get a multiple touchdown game. I love him to steamroll the Jets this week. Guy I'm staying away from, Frank Gore. Not really much to talk about there. Colts are bad. Cardinals D good. That's my analysis.
He's old.
One of my favorite sneaky plays this week is James White. I think the Pats are going to utilize him a lot more with with Amendola out. I think he's going to catch a lot of balls in this game. One of my favorite DFS plays of the week. Very reasonably priced in DraftKings. What about you, Schroeder?
Yeah. At running back, I already mentioned it. I'm not big on Cam, so I'm going to have to be really big on Jase too, since I think the Panthers are going to win this game. I think he's just going to get a lot of carries and put up a pretty good week. On the bad, I'm sorry, Isaiah Crowell. You know I love you, but this is not going to be your week. I just hope for volume here. I'm not really expecting that many yards. I do hope he surprises me, though. And lastly, on my sneaky play, I want to see a running back in Seattle actually take the backfield and run with it. And I'm going to say this is the week. It's going to happen. Thomas Rawls coming back. They loved him last year for some unknown reason. They're going to keep on loving him this year. He's going to have a great game. Put him in your lineups.
Nice.
I like that call, Schroeder.
Yeah. Rawls. Nah, I'm going with actually. Yeah, I just don't think the Seahawks are going to find their back this week, but maybe next week. So, so for wide receivers, one of the guys I mentioned earlier, I really like Larry Fitzgerald this year. Kind of going on what you were saying, Joe. I think that Carson Palmer is going to exploit the Colts defense a little bit. And I mean, what better than his man, Larry Fitzgerald? He's going to be really dangerous in PPR leagues, but I even like him in standard leagues this week as well. Guy that I hate this week, Dez Bryant. That is a tough Denver secondary. I don't think that Dez Bryant is necessarily going to have an awful year, but I don't think that he's going to bounce back this game. Once they get past this game, I think he can be more of a play. But if you have better options, I would stay away from Dez Bryant this week. And the sneaky receiver, I like Cooper Kupp. I think he had a really good week one and could continue to build on that. Definitely a guy in PPRs where he's going to be getting some catches. And if you're doing daily fantasy, he is one of the cheaper players. Going up against another soft defense, I think he could have a really good week.
Yeah, and we did just see Nelson Aguilar exploit that Washington defense out of the slot. So I like the call with Cooper Kupp. One of my top wide receiver plays this week is Keenan Allen. I love him against this Dolphins secondary. I think he should have a lot of success, especially against the burnable slot corner. I think Phillip Rivers is going to be looking for him a lot. Also very reasonably priced in DFS. Really good option for you to go with there. Guy I'm staying away from, Pierre Garçon. I've already talked about that Seattle secondary, that entire Seattle defense, and how you want to avoid the 49ers wherever possible. Not really much to say there. I think he's going to have a solid year, especially in PPR leagues, but stay away from him this week. And one of my favorite sneaky plays is J.J. Nelson. We don't need to say anything else about how bad the Colts are. I think he's going to get some chunk yardage plays in this game. Be a pretty good fill-in option for you if you're in need of one, or maybe if you want to take a dart throw on him in DFS this week. What about you, Schroeder?
I'm loving Devontae Parker. I already kind of mentioned him. I'm going to say I still love him this week. I think he's going to show a natural connection with Jay Cutler. Smoking Jay is going to keep on throwing it to him, and I think that Parker's going to come down with at least a couple to have a pretty decent game against a relatively talented San Diego secondary. One of the guys I am definitely staying away from, T.Y. Hilton. I don't even know who's going to be the quarterback. I'm not sure it matters. I think right now they're starting Jacoby Brissett, but I mean they could switch 3 to 4 times in the game, and it wouldn't matter for his value. He's going to be going up against Patrick Peterson. Sit him down on the bench if you have anyone else that you can play. And the guy that I really like this week is a guy that's going to be involved in the shootout, and that's Randall Cobb. I honestly think he's going to take the number 2 job before the end of the year back from Davante Adams. He is going to be more productive than Davante Adams this year. Not to say Adams will be a bad player, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than some people think, and I think he'll have another nice game this week because he actually did pretty good against Seattle last week as well.
He did have a very good game there. Looking at tight ends this week, the one I really like is Jimmy Graham. Had a very rough start, but playing the San Francisco 49ers is a good way to get back on the right track there. And he came off a really good season last year. I think he's going to continue to have a good season this year, and I think he'll bounce back this week. I'm staying away from Martellus Bennett this week. I just generally don't like Green Bay tight ends. Aaron Rodgers doesn't usually throw to his tight ends that much. I think since Jermichael Finley, he hasn't had a top 10 tight end since then. So I'm going to be – I was telling Schroeder, it's kind of going to be a theme with me to stay away from Martellus Bennett. Not that I don't like him as a player. I think he's very talented. The guy that I think could surprise some people is Zach Miller with Chicago. This is a Chicago offense that has lost a lot of weapons this offseason, especially with injuries. So Zach Miller has, had few catches last week. Looked like he was really, used to the offense. And going up against Tampa Bay, I think he could surprise some people. Zach Miller is a player who's still available in a lot of leagues. So if you're, your tight end went down or you just don't really have a good one, he could be an option to pick up.
Yeah, good calls. A guy I really love this week is Zach Ertz. I've already commented on the absence of Eric Berry from that Kansas City defense. I think it's going to open things up for him. And honestly, I think he's the top target there in Philadelphia right now. I think he's going to see a lot of looks and have a lot of scoring opportunities. Guy I'm staying away from. I love his talent, but I hate his situation. Hunter Henry. Guy I loved before the season, did not see a target in week 1. It was against a tough defense, but a defense he gashed last year. I just don't know how they're going to utilize him. And for the meantime, best to stay away. And one of my favorite sneaky plays of the week is Cameron Brate. A lot of people forget about him because they drafted O.J. Howard in Tampa Bay, but he was one of Jameis Winston's favorite targets last year. And I think he's going to be the receiving tight end for most of the season. It's you saw what Austin Hooper did in Chicago on 2 targets last week. I think Brate's going to see quite a few more than that. So I look for him to have a pretty solid week. Good fill-in.
He'll have 3 targets.
That's all he needs. He's elite.
Speaking of elite, someone who is not that, but I actually think is going to have a good game is Coby Fleener. He's actually a terrible player. But what happens in New England is they usually try to take down the biggest weapon, which is Michael Thomas for New Orleans. So I could see Fleener actually having a decent game just because they're going to be targeting him a lot because, you don't really even need to guard him. He usually drops half the balls he gets thrown. So, but hey, maybe he'll catch a couple and we can get some luck that way. One of the guys avoiding Jack Doyle, again, Indy, Arizona's great against tight ends. So that's already a bad matchup. Without Andrew Luck, even worse matchup. I don't want anything to do with anyone on Indy this week. And lastly, one of the guys who I think could actually have a pretty good game is Jared Cook of Oakland. He was targeted quite a bunch in week 1, and I think that could continue. So if you're looking for a fill-in for an injured player or someone who didn't perform in week 1, I think Jared Cook is a decent option.
Good stuff.
Awesome.
Good
Also,
stuff.
Ty Montgomery is a great DFS play this week. He's so cheap, and there's no longer any workload concerns there.
Yeah, very true.
Well,
Can't
guys,
wait for Bills-Panthers.
Can't wait for
Can't wait for all these
Bills-Panthers.
games except Cardinals-Colts, of course.
Yeah.
We had to
It's gonna
trash
be really
the
good.
Colts one more time before we signed off.
They're going to be bad. Thanks, guys, so much for listening in. Please go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also ask us questions at ffanonymous3@gmail.com or shoot us some tweets on who you should start sit, also at ffanonymous3. Any last words before we sign off?
Yeah. We'll also post that information in the comments after this stream. So,
Awesome.
All right, guys. Well, good luck to you. Good luck to your
All right.
fantasy teams, and we hope to see you next week.